She came back to the gates her father threw her out of, carrying something he never saw coming. The gates of Chief Irandu's estate were the tallest in the entire village, iron, black and proud, the way he had always wanted to be seen. But the woman standing outside them was not looking at the gates with fear. She was looking at them the way someone looks at a thing they already own. The security guard stepped forward. She was already speaking. "Tell the chief," she said quietly, "that Urena is at the gate." Guard frowned. He had worked in this compound for 11 years. Chief Irandu had 2 sons, no daughter, not one. "Madam, there is no Urena here," she smiled. Slow, certain. "I know," she said. "Tell him anyway. Before we go any further, if this is your first time here, you are exactly where you need to be. We tell African stories on this channel. Stories with truth, weight, and turns that will make you question everything you thought you knew. Hit subscribe and turn on the bell because this story has only just begun to breathe. Now, let us go back 15 years to the night everything began. Urena was 10 years old the first time she understood what her father thought of her. She was sitting in the corner of the compound, watching him. That was what she did, she watched. Chief Irandu was not yet a chief then, just a man with a large ego and a small income, greeting a neighbor with both hands and a wide smile that disappeared the moment the neighbor turned away. Urena noticed. She always noticed. Her mother, Uloku, moved quietly behind him, a bowl balanced in her hands, eyes down, performing the particular kind of invisibility that kept the peace. She was a beautiful woman made small by years of careful shrinking. She caught Urena's eye once and offered the gentlest smile, the kind that says, "I see you," without saying anything at all. Urena's back curved slightly as she sat. A hunchback, her father called it, though never to visitors. To visitors he had 2 sons and no other children. When Urena walked past him, he did not look at her. He looked away. That was the cruelty, not the hitting, not the shouting. The looking away. The merchant arrived at dusk. A distant relative, quiet, unhurried, carrying a leather bag and a sealed agreement nobody else was shown. Chief Irandu sent Uloku inside before the conversation began. The 2 men talked for 17 minutes. Urena counted from the corner. Afterward her father called her. "You are going somewhere better," he said. He did not look at her face. "Pack what you have." Uloku stepped forward. 1 step. Chief Irandu's eyes moved to her slowly, deliberately, and she stopped. Her mouth closed. She stood in the doorway while Urena packed a wrapper, a worn Bible, and the silence of a child who had learned not to expect rescue. But the man her father handed her to was not who anyone in that village imagined. And that secret would become the first crack in everything Chief Irandu believed he had escaped. The vehicle moved through the dark for 3 hours. Urena sat still, watching the road swallow her village. The merchant, Chijubum, had not spoken once. His hands were steady on the wheel. His face was unreadable. Urena pressed herself against the door and prayed the way her mother had taught her, quietly, without moving her lips. Then the vehicle stopped, a modest house. Light in the windows, inside order, shelves of books. A school uniform folded on a chair. A meal on the table, covered, still warm. Chijubum set down his bag and pointed at the food. "You eat, you sleep. Monday you go to school." Urena stared at him. "That is all?" she asked. "That is all," he said. He was a widower who had done this before, quietly moving children from dangerous homes before their fates were sealed. No organization funded him. No one praised him. He simply believed someone had to. 3 weeks later, a doctor examined Urena's spine for the first time. He looked at the X-ray, then at her, then back at the X-ray. "Has no one ever looked at this before?" Urena said nothing. Her eyes answered. Treatment began. Slowly, steadily, the curve responded. Her body, the thing her father had called a curse, was simply a child who had never received care. One evening Chijubum sat across from her while she read and said, without looking up from his own book, "Whatever they told you that you were, leave it at that door. It has no place in this house." Urena looked up. He was already reading again. She filed it away. The way she filed everything, she healed. She learned. She grew into something her father's compound could never have contained. But she never stopped watching home, and what she saw gathering there would force her hand in a way even she had not planned. Lagos did not intimidate Urena. She arrived at 23 with a law degree, a business mind sharpened by years of quiet observation, and the particular stillness of someone who had nothing left to prove to the wrong people. She spoke last in every meeting. But when she spoke, the room adjusted. A male colleague once leaned across a boardroom table and said, smiling, "With respect, I don't think she understands the numbers." She said nothing. 3 weeks later, he was submitting reports to her desk. Chijibum visited her Lagos office once. She was in a meeting when he arrived. He sat in her chair, looked around the room she had built, then left a folded note on her desk and was gone before she returned. I knew from the first Monday. She kept it in her drawer beside her pen. From a distance, she had been watching home. Chief Irandu's chieftaincy, bought with land money and borrowed influence. The new estate, tall gates, iron, black, proud. His sons, Dubum and Kelechi, spending what their father had not yet fully earned. And through a cousin, one quiet piece of news that landed differently from everything else. Uloku had been ill for over a year. Chief Irandu had told no one outside the compound. Urena sat with that information for a long time. Then she returned to work. For 2 years, a holding company had been receiving desperate investment proposals from Chief Irandu's sons. Kelechi, the eldest, had pitched 14 times, increasingly urgent, increasingly creative with the truth. The company was bleeding. The estate was mortgaged. The gates were tall, but the foundation was rotting. The holding company was Urena's. She had been reading her family's desperation like a case file. She had everything positioned. One signature and Chief Irandu's world would dissolve quietly. But something arrived that had nothing to do with business, and it changed the entire direction of what she had spent years building. The letter came through the cousin, handwritten. The cursive slow and unsteady, the penmanship of a woman whose hands had grown tired of holding things together. It did not beg. It did not accuse. "My eyes are growing tired, Urena. I want to see your face before God closes them." Urena read it 3 times. Then she folded it and placed it on her desk beside Chijubum's note. She sat looking at both pieces of paper for a long time. She had built an empire for 15 years with her father at the center of her compass. Every degree she earned, every deal she closed, the holding company, the case file, all of it had his name written somewhere in the margins. And now her mother was dying and none of it meant anything. She did not pick up the phone to dismantle his estate. She picked it up to book a flight. Uloku had not been a passive woman, she had been a surviving one. There is a difference, and Urena had lived long enough to know it. Stay until the end, because what Urena places on that table will be the one thing Chief Irandu's pride cannot survive. And it will not be what you think. She packed one bag. She prepared the documents, and she went home. But walking through those iron gates meant standing in front of Chief Irandu. And what happened the moment he saw her face was something not even Urena had fully prepared for. The gate guard recognized nothing about her. Neither did the house staff who watched her cross the compound. She had arrived in a quiet black car, dressed simply, a deep green wrapper, a silk scarf, flat shoes. No performance. No announcement. Chief Irandu appeared in the doorway adjusting his agbada, expecting a business visitor. His chin was lifted. His eyes were already performing authority, then they landed on her face and stilled. "I am Urena," she said. "Your daughter," he laughed, the laugh of a man who was suddenly, quietly afraid. "My daughter," he looked at his sons. "You see what people do now, they come into a man's compound." She placed the documents on the table, birth records, and a photograph torn at one edge, the missing half still hanging on Uloku's bedroom wall after 15 years. Kelechi picked up the birth record. His eyes moved across it, then moved to her face, then back down, something drained from his expression because Kelechi had been pitching to a holding company for 2 years. He knew the company name. He knew the director's name. And standing in front of him now, in a green wrapper and flat shoes, was the woman who had been reading every desperate proposal he had ever sent. He said nothing. He set the paper down. Across the room, from a chair by the window, Uloku looked up. She did not call Urena's name. She simply began to weep, quietly, the way she had always done everything. "You came," she whispered. Urena crossed the room. She knelt beside her mother's chair and took both her hands that had grown thin and light, and held them the way you hold something you were afraid you would never touch again. "I always was going to, Mama," she said. "I always was going to." She did not look at her father when she said it. If this story is moving you, drop a comment below and hit the like button. It helps more people find stories like this one. Chief Irandu looked at his daughter for 3 long seconds. Then he did what guilty men always do. He performed, arms opened, voice softened, eyes glistened with the tears of a man who had confused guilt with grief. He spoke about God's restoration, about the hardness of those times, about not a single day passing without regret. Kelechi nodded slowly, already calculating. If she was back, if she was who she appeared to be, perhaps the holding company, perhaps the debt, the room waited for Urena to break. Or ignite. She did neither. She watched her father perform with the same eyes she had used as a 10-year-old in the corner of the compound, filing it away. Patient as water finding its level, she let him finish, every word, every pause. Then she reached into her bag, one document, set on the table without ceremony. Kelechi saw it first. The mortgage deed fully cleared, the estate's debt paid and title restored to Chief Irandu's name. He stared at it, his mouth opened. He understood before his father did. She had never been evaluating his proposals for investment. She had been deciding whether to save the house her mother slept in. Why? His voice barely worked. Urena did not look at him. She looked at Uloku. Because she never stopped loving this house, she said quietly. And I did not travel all this way to burn down the last place my mother feels safe. She stood. She straightened her wrapper. Debt is gone. The house is yours. Mama's care is fully arranged. A driver will come every Tuesday. She picked up her bag. Urena, Chief Irandu's voice cracked. The performance had finally collapsed. Urena, please. She stopped at the door. She did not turn around. My name means father's pride, she said. I used to wonder why they gave me that name. A breath. Now I know. It was never about you. She walked through the iron gates. She did not look back. The woman they threw into the river did not come back with wet hands. She came back walking on water. Urena never returned to the estate. 3 months later, Uloku passed, a clean room, soft light, a gospel record she had always loved, and a Tuesday driver who had never once missed. Urena had been there the week before. They had sat together without speaking much. It was enough. Chief Irandu kept the house, kept the title. But those who knew him closely said something behind his eyes went quiet after that day, like a man who had finally read a bill he could never pay. That evening, Urena called Chijubum. There was a long silence between them, the comfortable kind. It is done, she said. I know, he said. I could hear it in how you called. They sold her because they believed she had no value. She returned to prove she had so much she could afford to give some away. Urena was never the problem in that compound. She was always the answer. They were simply too proud to read it. If this story stayed with you, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. We tell African stories that move, challenge, and stay with you long after they end. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. And tell me in the comments, what was the moment that hit you hardest?